Hello, welcome to our 10th video lesson. Today we are going to talk about sociolinguistics. You will hear about what is sociolinguistics, then I'll talk a bit about language register and the factors that affect it, and finally we'll look at the geographical varieties of the English language with special stress on British and American English. First, let's look at the general definitions. Sociolinguistics is a part of linguistic science. It is the sociology of language. We do not always use the same English language or Spanish or any other language. We choose specifics to be appropriate for the situation. That is what sociolinguistic research deals with. Being able to recognize, understand, and use the language appropriate for a situation is important to be able to communicate with people from different backgrounds and in different positions. The specific language we choose for a particular situation is called language register. Language register is the specific set of words, structures, and grammar used in a particular situation. It is closely connected with formality of the used language, which we talked about during the previous lessons. For example, we use different language registers when we talk with friends, with family, when we talk to somebody at work, when we need to be very formal, or when we are at a sports match. Language register is affected by a number of factors. These include, for example, age. People of different age groups use different language. Gender. There is a difference between how men and women talk. Hierarchy. We use different language if we are talking to our equals, if we are talking to our boss, or if we are the boss. Social class also affects the language people use. Upper class, represented by the royal family, uses a different language register than office workers, and their language is different from that of manual workers. In Britain, these distinctions are so big you can often classify a person simply by the language they use. The differences between language registers include pronunciation, vocabulary, accent, and even certain grammar structures. Here you can see a few examples of differences between upper and non-upper class language. Another important factor is the culture and country. Even though English is the official language of many different countries, each uses a slightly different form of the language. So we have special British and American English, Australian English, Canadian English, South African English, Philippine English, Indian English, and many others. The most common English varieties are British and American. And lastly, another important factor that affects language that we use is the specific relationship between speakers or specific situations. We can see, for example, a parent and a child, stranger giving directions on the street, or a priest giving sermon at church. Let's look at the most important British English and American English differences. The first difference between British and American English are some grammatical features. For example, British people often use shall in future tense, as in I shall or shall I, in first and second person singular and first person plural, whereas the American people simply use will. Another difference is in the past tense, most specifically in the third forms of verbs, so in past participle. In some cases, the irregularity of verbs differs, and some verbs that are irregular in British English are regular in American and vice versa. Another very common difference is in the expression of actions in recent past that still affect present time. In Britain, present perfect is mostly used. In American English, Americans mostly use simple past. For example, a Brit would say, "I've just arrived," while an American would probably say, "I just arrived." And the last grammatical difference we are going to talk about is about expressing future. When talking about very near future, for example, when giving directions, a Brit is more likely to say, "You will see," whereas an American is more likely to say, "You are going to see." Another difference between British and American English is in vocabulary. For example, while Brit would say lorry, an American would say truck. In Britain, they say lift. In America, they say elevator. In Britain, when you have a sweet tooth, you buy a biscuit. In America, you would eat a cookie. Or in Britain, you might get some sweets, while in America, you would get candy. Mail is being delivered by postman in Britain and by mailman in America. In Britain, you throw rubbish into bin, while in America, you throw it into trash can. Then in Britain, you live in a flat, while in America, you live in an apartment. In Britain, you clean your floor with a hoover, while in America, you clean it with a vacuum cleaner. And finally, when you're cold, in Britain you put on a jumper, while in America you put on a sweater. There is also a difference between British and American spelling. On the right side, you can see a few examples of the different British and American spelled words. The differences are usually caused by the British English holding onto the old French and Latin influences, while American spelling is usually simplified. For example, take a look at word color. In Britain, it's spelled with U, while in America, they simply deleted it because it's not pronounced. There are many cases like that in British and American English. And the last important difference between British and American English that we are going to talk about is pronunciation. Again, on the top right side, you can see a few examples of differences between American and British way of pronouncing words. The most common and obvious difference is the British way of replacing R at the end of words with a, schwa. That means that the American car is pronounced as car in Britain, or, for example, the American park is pronounced as park in Britain. Another topic that we are going to talk about during the lesson is the Common European Framework of Reference. Please print out the chart and bring it to class with you. It's posted on our campus in the video description. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you for watching and see you in class.